listening to the Tricorder transmissions. Or leave. Episode 2.
Just what the doctor ordered. Right, doctor? I couldn't have prescribed better.
The Admiral's orders are confirmed. You have been cleared for shore leave. Tonight, on our second installment, we will continue our lead up to the 50th anniversary convention in Las Vegas. We're going to be discussing a huge announcement dropped very recently by Creation Entertainment, and we're going to have some special guests beaming aboard for another round of First Cons, the segment where our guests look back at their first times attending a Star Trek convention. So I am Jeff Hewlett, and I am joined by my esteemed co-host, the always wonderful Miss Heather Barker.
Hola.
How are you tonight, Heather?
I'm doing pretty well. Getting excited.
Excellent. Yeah, it's getting closer and closer. And this is our second installment of Shore Leave already. It seemed like we've been building up to doing the first one for so long, and now we're already on the second. So
stuff keeps happening, and I'm like, I've got to talk about it now.
I know. We might have to up the frequency if we can.
We might.
Yeah, things are getting very exciting up towards the beginning of this convention that's going to be here before we know it. And tonight actually is a Tricorder Transmissions first. Yes. Tonight we are finally crossing the Trek podcast streams, everybody. we are going to have with us one half of the TrekGeeks podcast team. Mr. Bill Smith is here. How are you, Bill?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Heather, it's good to talk to you again, and I'm excited to be here, particularly because Dan is not going to filibuster from the floor.
Yes, we've been talking about doing a crossover show for, God, a long time. I think ever since right after the last Trek convention, right?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it on and off, and I think we've got some plans for some exciting stuff. But more importantly, I'm excited to get to Vegas to finally meet you in person.
I know. Isn't that the craziest thing that we did not cross paths at the last convention? We were both there all 4 days, right? It's amazing to me that we didn't meet up.
Yeah. And Heather, I think you're the sort of the point of focus on this, because I feel like every time I saw you, you were with Claire, and that was about it. So after you saw us, you must have run into Jeff all the time. So it's kind of neat how it all worked.
Yeah, I'm trying to. What day did we actually meet, Jeff? Do you remember?
I met Claire the first night of the con. Okay. I was with Morehouse, and we met up. I met up with Claire at the Masquerade, and I think you were there briefly, or you were talking to a bunch of other people too. And I don't think we talked much until the next day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a blur.
It is. Yeah. So it's going to be really great leading up to this con, and I'm so excited to have you as part of the show. But we're going to have to get Dan on the air here at some point in the near future too, I think.
Oh, he'd love it. He's dying to come on, and we're anxious to get you guys on to talk about some great Trek.
Oh, that's going to be incredible. Yeah, maybe Heather can come on too, or even Claire too. All of the Tricorder folks can.
I would love to, because I'm a geek. I'm a TrekGeeks girl.
The original.
The OG.
Heather has been a fan of Trek. I've seen her tweeting about TrekGeeks for a long time.
We are incredibly fortunate and blessed to have the fans and friends that we have listening to our podcast. We had no idea what was going to happen with it, and every week we are humbled and gratified, and we're excited to share with other podcasters too. So it's a learning process, and we're just happy to be part of it.
Yeah, certainly. And you just celebrated your 1 year anniversary. You know, while you're here, why don't you just quickly tell our audience what TrekGeeks is all about, since you just made your 1 year mark?
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. We honestly had no idea how long this would last. We could have done this for 10 episodes, because most podcasts fail before their 10th episode, is the statistic I've heard. Yep. And so, Dan and I have talked about Trek for 20 years. And we always have a blast when we do it. We give each other a lot of grief. We laugh all the time. And truly, our podcast mirrors our conversations in real life. We give each other that much guff, and we really do laugh that often, which is why we have the outtakes at the end of every episode, so that people can hear sort of the continuity of our relationship. But truly, it's about our friendship as much as it is about Star Trek. Because without one, we wouldn't have the other. And at this phase of our lives, they kind of both run in sync. which is kind of fascinating for us.
Very cool, man. And that's awesome. And guys, anybody out there who has not listened to the Trek Geek show, you guys are missing out. You really should tune in. Bill, why don't we tell people where they can find you guys if they're interested?
Sure. Well, obviously the podcast can be found at trekgeeks.com or on iTunes or just about anywhere you can find a podcast. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/trekgeeks. I'm on Twitter at trekgeekbill. Dan is on at DCDDS9, so that might give you a bit of a hint as to which show is his favorite, perhaps. At TrekGeeks, Facebook, Skype, Twitter, we're all over the place. So please, we welcome new listeners all the time, and we just hope to keep doing what we're doing because we're having fun.
Yeah, don't stop, man. Just keep going as long as you possibly can. These shows are so magical and so much fun. It's great to have so many of us out there doing our thing.
Well, and it's taught us a lot about Trek fandom, especially when we both went to STLV last year, because we had people recognizing us, and that was really kind of a mind-blowing experience. We just figure we're two guys who sit at our computers every day and record our voices, and we didn't really have a good handle on how many people were hearing it and identifying with it. So it's great. I look forward to this summer to see what happens.
Yeah, that you reminded me of a story from my first STLV. I probably should save it for our first cons. It was about the first time we ran into somebody that actually listened to our show and recognized us. So that was really cool. So I'll hold off since we're doing first cons in a little bit, and I'll remind me to tell that story when we get there. So we usually start off our shore leave episodes with some news and tidbits about the upcoming convention, but I think there's one giant announcement that I think is going to trump everything. I think we're only going to talk about this one thing about the convention this episode and save our other planned stuff until the next one, and that is on February 11th, 2015. I'll actually read the entire announcement from Creation Entertainment. So they said, at this time, all seating and ticketing is now sold out for the convention. We are working with the hotel and our seating plan to try to add any seating we can. If and when any seating can be added, we will do so and send out a message to those on our mailing list. We thank all of our fellow Star Trek fans for its truly unprecedented accomplishment. What a tribute to the enduring popularity of our mentor Gene Roddenberry's legacy to humankind. There is no waiting list for tickets. Please do not contact us for this. Thanks. So that means that every ticket package and every day pass is now completely sold out until they're able to somehow finagle more people into the actual convention. And we don't know about fire codes or anything, but off the top of your heads, Heather, how do you feel about a sold out STLV this far in advance?
I think it's pretty amazing, and it gives me a lot of hope for all of the new Trek fans who will meet there, and what Creation might have up their sleeves, and CBS, because CBS has a pretty large hand in the convention this year. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to all of the people. I do not want them to add more tickets, whether they're bringing back the cadet option where it was just admission basically to like the vendor's room and the halls, but not to any of the theaters. I don't want that. Like, we don't need to have more people. It was congested enough last year on the busy days that it just scares me. Plus my own little social anxiety. I mentioned before that I often snuck over to the little Tribble Lounge to get away from all of the people. And so far that seems to be a pretty popular opinion. Of course, there are so many people that didn't get tickets, and we can discuss that because I don't think Creation handled announcement of their tickets very well. So there are countless people out there still looking for tickets. I just can't imagine, like, maybe they should have, I know they're under contract with the Rio, but maybe they should have thought about moving it somewhere else for the 50th. I don't know.
That's a good thought. And, another thing that really stood out to me is that it's so far in advance, there's still not a lot of content that's been announced for the convention. In fact, they haven't added a huge amount of guests yet. They've got a modest amount, but not even half of what they had last year at the time the convention actually happened. There's, there's no panel list yet. So we don't really even know a lot of the things that are going to happen, and people have bought out all these tickets on spec. So, Bill, what are your thoughts on this sellout?
I'm stunned, quite honestly, because I don't think I've ever seen STLV sell out in its truest sense of the word. I mean, there's not going to be a Groupon this year. There's not going to be the discount single day tickets, and I'm going to feel like a salmon, I think, walking up. I'm a little concerned that they've sold out so quickly, like you just said, before there's actual content announced. I think they're almost kind of hoping if we build it, they will come. And to some extent we have, because I think we were all fearful we were going to get shut out like so many fans have.
Yeah, that's Heather and Claire. I remember way back when, right after the end of the last convention, you guys were really twisting my arm to buy my ticket ahead of time because you guys had the crystal ball and you were saying, this is going to be a sellout. You better get your tickets now. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll book my room. I'll get my tickets, blah, blah, blah. And you guys were right.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going since 2009, and I think in all of those years, only one Saturday has sold out. And, I don't have proof of that from creation. It might be online somewhere that they sold out that day, but I've never seen it do this, especially as we've just said, this far in advance. So I'm also stunned, but I had kind of thought, okay, it's the 50th. Everybody's going to hype it up. It's going to be huge, but I wonder what they're really going to do. Like, what are we really going to see? Is creation going to have more stuff? Is it going to be what all of my expectations are?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm getting kind of hopeful. I didn't think it would be before. And even though there's not a lot of content announced and there's only 60 guests as of today, I'm still I'm getting more and more excited as the days go on.
Yeah, I am too. I'm wondering, I'm sure it won't have a huge impact on air travel, but I'm wondering if, flights from popular origin points will be a little bit more scarce as you get closer.
Well, I know that Southwest, I already bought my ticket to go. I just need to buy my return ticket. And I think with Southwest, that was the cheapest fare I was able to find. I think at this point, you should be able to buy return tickets as of today. I can confirm that in a little bit.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the return tickets. That's a good question. Bill, have you bought your airfare yet?
Like Heather, I've bought my airfare to Vegas, but the rest of Southwest schedule opens up on the 18th of February. So
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I'm going to have to look at my normal. I usually fly out of Philadelphia. I usually do United now, Continental United, or American. So I'm going to check those out and see what they are. Usually I buy round trip, but I usually don't buy this far in advance, but now I'm starting to think maybe I should.
Yeah. On the subject of flights, I'm going to skip over. I just went over to Creation's website. So we've already mentioned that the Rio is completely sold out.
Yep.
It looks like there are still rooms at the Palms, according to this. And as far as I know, there are still rooms at Gold Coast. But talking about like lines and stuff being backed up, I keep thinking about the check-in line at the Rio.
Oh, God, yeah.
And what that's going to be like. So a lot of us tend to come in like the day before the convention.
Yeah.
And then leave the day after. And if you're able to do that, I would highly recommend it. Even coming a day before, the line to check in can still be pretty lengthy. I think last year it wasn't that bad, maybe 30 minutes. I think the year before it took about an hour. So I would just suggest that you get in a day or two early so that you can get checked into the Rio and avoid the line that's going to happen. I'm sure they will do what they can to make it speed up and not take hours to check in, but I have nightmares about it.
I hope so. Hey, Bill, are you staying at the Rio?
I actually am, and it's because Dan talked me into it.
Nice.
Smart
the
man.
Rio actually is not one of my favorite hotels, I'll be candid.
Yeah.
Because it's off strip.
Yes.
I've been to Vegas a lot in my life, probably at least 20 times.
Oh, you got me beat.
Yeah.
I'm in the teens, but
Mom always said I was an overachiever. But I'm happy to be in the center where the action is, because last year, we missed a lot of things like, say, gatherings at the Masquerade, for example. But yeah, I am at the Rio. I'm actually coming in the day of the con, and that's because I enjoy being married. If I leave any earlier than that, I have a feeling that I might get to stay in Vegas a little longer than I planned. No, my wife is very supportive, and I'm coming in day one. I'm in early, I think, like 10 a.m. local time. So
Oh, good.
Okay. That's cool. Excellent. So yeah, I'm glad to hear you're staying at the Rio because I was saying on the other show we just did about a month ago that I had stayed off premises last year and the year before, and the first year it wasn't that big of a deal because I didn't really know a lot of people there and I wasn't hanging around late into the evening. But for the convention last year, I did not get back to my room, which was about 15-ish minutes away, depending on lights and traffic. I didn't get back to my room until after 4 a.m. every single night, and that really, really sucked.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the last night I was getting ready to head out, and it was really early for me. It was about 2:30 in the morning, getting close to 3. And as I'm walking away, Larry Nemechek walks up and strikes up a conversation. I was there for like another hour. I'm like, oh, I couldn't get out. So yeah, it's staying at the. I'm looking forward to just being able to get on an elevator and go up and just kind of hit the bed.
Do either of you have any idea? I started a thread in the unofficial Star Trek group for people who need tickets and people who need rooms, and someone had mentioned like what the procedure might be if they've got a reservation that they're going to give to someone else. Do either of you have any experience with doing that or suggestions?
I do not, actually.
Neither do I.
I have never sold a reservation or a ticket or bought one from someone else. So it's a totally alien concept to me. I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you can either. And obviously, I think the best solution at this point for anyone that may want to do that is to just call the Rio point blank and ask what to do.
Yeah, maybe you could do something like if the person that you want to sell your hotel reservation to, you could get on like a conference call with them and call the Rio together so you can cancel and rebook at the exact same time.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would recommend, and that's the best solution I can think of. But I know primarily I made the thread for people looking to share rooms, but I've seen a couple people that do have reservations and are trying to get out of it. And it would be great if, that reservation could be taken over by someone that wants to stay at the Rio. I don't recommend attempting to sell any reservation or ticket at a price above what you paid for it. But if we could just fill up those vacancies with more Star Trek fans, that's great. So hopefully it works out. But I guess we would just advise you to do what Jeff recommended and hop on a conference call and both call the Rio to figure out what to do there.
Yeah, probably the best idea because this is one of those things where it's probably really easy to get scammed.
Yeah.
Not that anybody, I think, that's a member of the unofficial Facebook group is looking to scam anybody, but if you're out there on some sort of a ticket exchange service or like a Craigslist or an eBay or anything like that, it may be really easy to lose your money by trying to buy a ticket from someone else. So just be careful out there.
Yeah, someone did ask about like if they've got a ticket with someone else's name on it and they take that to the convention, what would happen? And they've never checked my ID when I registered, whether I've had general admission, captain's chair. When I go and register and I get my little packet, they just look at my ticket. So I don't think that's a big deal. I just think being smart about the transaction is what's most important. But, I put up that thread and I specifically said, this is not to sell overpriced. You have to sell it for what you paid plus that $775 creation service fee thing.
Yeah.
So we don't want any scalpers, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. But as far as that goes, the rest of the transaction is up to you guys.
Yes, and I'm wondering. I'm willing to bet money that there's going to be some scalp tickets going around out there for much more than their face value for this con since it's so popular.
Yeah, and I think in the past someone had popped up a captain's chair ticket or something, and I was alerted to it because unfortunately they were asking for, well, first they said it was sold out and it wasn't sold out, and then they were asking for a bit more than what it was going for on the website, and not cool. Not cool.
Yeah.
So just be careful, use your best judgment and intuition. And if we find any more tips, we will surely pass them along.
Agreed. Yes, yes. So, speaking of the unofficial Facebook group, earlier in the week, we put out a call for listener comments, member comments about the sellout. And we wanted to see what everybody else thought. And we figured we would read their comments on the air and then discuss them. And I'll start off with the first comment that we got back by Desiree Rogers. And she says, "This will be my 5th consecutive convention, and the previous experiences definitely had more intimate quality to them, being nowhere near a sellout. I'm excited to experience a sellout crowd, but I admit I'm a bit nervous about the prospect of a large crowd in terms of viewing things and getting around. My excitement outweighs any apprehension. My first con was a solo trip for me, and being a hardcore introvert, it was a little hard for me to come out of my shell. But it's gotten so much easier with each passing year. I can only imagine with this monster convention, one has no choice but to get to know their neighbor because there is no choice or extra room." So I think Desiree echoed some of our previous comments about the overcrowding. So Bill, you've been quiet for a little while here. What are your thoughts on Desiree's comments?
I think that Desiree's comments are something I can relate to wholeheartedly. I mean, when I first started going to STLV, a lot of times it was by myself, and I felt incredibly introverted because really I didn't know anybody there at that point. So I can absolutely respect the way she feels. I do think that it is going to be pretty busy. I think we're going to feel like we're in a tin can at some point. Or maybe like we're the people in the Mark of Gideon, perhaps. I think that the bright side to all of this is that you're among a whole bunch of friends that you've never met. So whereas at a sports event or something else, a concert, it might be, very terrifying because everybody's out there for themselves. I think that this crowd is a little different and probably a little more respectful of people and space at times. So I think that's probably the best thing that we have going for us.
I agree. And I think, Bill, you may have just come up with the best idea for creation for this convention. You know what they should do? If anybody from Creation is listening to this right now, I'm going to give you $1 million idea. Get some sort of very inexpensive, like plastic jumpsuit, like a poncho with a hood on it, and hand it out to every single person. So we actually look like the Mark of Gideon. Everybody will walk around bumping into each other with these little similar outfits on, with just our little faces sticking out. That would be so awesome.
It's the ultimate 50th anniversary cosplay.
Free cosplay for everybody. Oh, Heather, what do you think about Desiree's comments?
I love her comment, and I think she was so positive about it because I know that thinking about having so many people around you is overwhelming and difficult. But, I think that so many of us know each other that once we see each other, like we know we're family. And with the new people, just like Bill said, everyone is friendly, really. I mean, people are people, so somebody might be having a bad day or someone else might be shy and might not interact with you. But there's just so many people that you can turn around and talk to pretty much anybody. So, I mean, I know for Claire, I wish she was here, but she said people are asking her when she was going to the convention alone, like, "Oh, aren't you going to be lonely? You're not going to know anybody there." And she's like, "But I'm going to know people there. Like, I'm going to make friends because we all have Star Trek in common."
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people, and it's a bit intimidating to think about, but hey, it's more friends. So I'm thrilled.
That's a really great way to look at it. And I guess, I also had a bit of a feeling of kinship with what Desiree said, because I remember my first con a couple of years ago, the podcast was still relatively new, and I was kind of timid about promoting it because I was afraid that, I'd get criticized because those people are such hardcore Trek fans. I had this vision in my head of what people at the convention were going to be like. So I was much more introverted than I would normally have been. And that was, of course, all unfounded. But I kind of felt, I was there with just Craig. I didn't really know anybody else. We just barely knew the 5-year mission guys. It was kind of an awkward feeling. But of course, my second year, as I've said many times, it was a completely different experience, and all that introversion was gone. So it's so cool that we all kind of have these similar stories about our first or early conventions and how much different the later ones are.
Yeah, absolutely. I I was lucky that the first conventions I went to, I went with my ex-husband, and he was very outgoing, a little more so than me. So he was able to strike up conversations and I would join in. And so my first ones they were okay. I mean, I was there with somebody and then able to make friends and meet people. And the one thing that I have to say is that first convention, I would watch people and I could tell even then that there was this family element. And I preach this family element because it's so important to me and why the experience is something that I look forward to every year and will never give up going. But just the fact that you could see that, don't be shy. Like, just make friends, talk to people. It's the best thing that you can do going. And I think before you know it, you will be roped in and you will feel like you are one of the collective.
You definitely will, and anybody who has submitted comments to the show, you have to come find us
Yes.
at the
yes.
convention so we can meet you and thank you in person. And moving on to our next comment is from Missy Kilgore. And Missy says, I'd like to talk about your thoughts on Creation's comment that they're working with the venue to see if they can add more seats, or some fan suggestion to have a cadet ticket that would be good for everything but the main theater. Many frequent con-goers have expressed concern that it's already super crowded and that adding more people would only diminish everyone's experience. And I will definitely echo that concern. And Heather, you said something about this earlier, that the con, even when it's not sold out, there's times where the con can get really, really crowded, especially trying to maneuver up and down the hallways between big panels. When, I remember when Shatner was going to be on, it was just mobbed getting from the vendor room to, say, the big theater. And, if the con is completely and totally sold out every single day and they squeeze even more people in, just knowing the chaos that was there last year, Bill, do you think it's going to be a detriment to everyone there trying to kind of muscle your way through? Is it going to diminish everyone's experience, like Missy said?
I'm concerned it might on some level because simply of the ability to just get from point A to point B, whether it's for autographs or photo ops, or maybe you just need a break from stuff. I'm concerned. Well, I'm even concerned at the level of tickets that they have now, because they haven't really ever had a crowd like that there at the Rio.
Yeah.
So I hope they don't add extra chairs, because I don't want to see the stress level of an amazing weekend raise for anybody.
Agreed.
Yeah, and it seems that a lot of us have a little bit of that social anxiety, or whatever you want to call it, where it's just large crowds can be very overwhelming. And, Creation has said before, they're never going to sell more tickets than they have seats. And I think they just need to stick by that. We said earlier, we don't know what the fire codes are, but I don't even want to go near there. I know that a big issue of why the Guinness attempt, the world record, most people in Star Trek costume attempt, they stopped doing it because they could only fill the room to fire code capacity. And we still had people waiting to come in. So it just got to be a little overwhelming, I think. And yeah, I just can't imagine having more and more people. I hope that Creation possibly has more areas where people can go and just relax and get away from the crazy.
That's a great point too, is as you were saying that, it made me think of the areas that they had last year for just kind of getting out of the way. So you had like the enlarged Quark's bar area with kind of like that seating area in the back where you could kind of lay down on the floor almost.
Yeah.
And
triple lounge.
Yeah, that was really, it's a triple lounge, right? That was really cool. And there was, and they had a couple of exhibits that you could stand in and hang around at. But I'm thinking, if you're totally sold out every day, all of that space is going to be completely dominated. And even the vendor room is probably going to get excessively crowded. And so escaping is going to be more about going all the way up the main hall and going out towards where the casino is, just to kind of get away from it, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to do that because of the smoke. Yuck.
It gets very smoky in the Rio, yeah.
Yeah, I know they've got... last year, there was an area that looked like it may have been maybe for the guests. There were tables in there, but it wasn't for, like, all of us. I think it might have been, like, a prep area for the guests that were speaking in something or some kind of lounge. So I feel like maybe they could use that room. And I don't know how many rooms are contracted to. It looks like that whole corridor, they get a lot of it. So I don't know if they could open up another area because, yeah, everything is going to be highly populated.
Yeah, I seriously hope whatever space they can rent out for this con is completely maxed out so that they don't have any the overflows that they had last year. I mean, I remember trying to get into that bridge set, and there were just lines and lines and lines for that thing, and I can just imagine how much longer they're going to be this year for those same exhibits. So
Definitely.
yeah. So moving along, we have a comment from James Hickman. He says, hello. It would have been much less of a shock if Creation had stated on their website that ticket sales were going crazy and that in a few days or by a certain date, they anticipate they would be sold out, or they would have given us mere mortals a heads up. I'm on Social Security and have things to buy month to month as I can afford them. This was a month for lodging and plane fare. Next month would be a single day ticket purchase. Thank you for hearing me complain a little. James, I feel so bad for you, man. And that's a shame that, for people on fixed incomes or people who didn't have the money that far in advance, this really is a blow.
Yeah. People waiting on their tax returns to pay for it.
Yeah, yep.
I know a lot of people that do that.
Oh, that's a shame. Bill, do you feel for James too?
Oh, without question. I mean, Vegas is always the most expensive convention as far as Star Trek goes. A lot of the other regional conventions wind up being cheaper for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
This year being the 50th, they're just charging even more than they normally would for Vegas.
Yep.
So it's, I understand that they're a business and they're in business to make money, but come on,
Yeah. The gala ticket is half as it's twice as much. It's like $60 and it's normally 30, and it's still the Nevada Pops, which I've seen 5 times now. Sorry, Creation. But yeah, I get like with some of the ticket prices being a little higher and whatnot, and we could talk for days about all the drama that's gone on with the ticket prices. But the fact that it's sold, and I mean, it's sold out to so many people. I know I have not gotten an email from Creation in probably 2 years, and I'm on their email list. So I wouldn't have known about the tickets unless I had been sitting here on my computer watching someone submit a post about them. The general admission was on sale. I was
that's
like,
a
everybody.
good point, Heather. I'm on the mailing list too, and I haven't gotten a single email from Creation about anything about tickets going on sale. Wow. And, I only knew about the general admission package because you guys, we were actually recording right around when they went on sale.
Yeah.
And you guys like, oh my God, they're on sale. Let's go. So yeah, it would have been really nice if Creation gave people a heads up, especially for people like James who were in a situation where they had to buy everything kind of spaced out so they could afford it all.
I know that they've put stuff in the official Creation group that said like sellout imminent. But even when they put tickets on sale, like Captain's Chair, something went on sale. Maybe it was General Admission, went on sale on like Friday and then sold out by like Sunday morning. And the people didn't even get an email that it was available until like Monday. And I've heard about that happening numerous times, that when Creation does send the email, they don't send it until the tickets have been available for a few days. So, I mean, it is what it is. Unfortunately, that there's nothing we can go back and do unless Creation does come up with a way to add more seats, whatever they're going to do, which I hope they don't do. But there is the ticket thread. Go to the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group if you're looking for tickets, and we have a thread. It's in our little group info. I have a pinned rules and all the information, and I put the links there so that you can keep looking.
All right. Well, it's convenient. The next comment has a little bit of an alternate idea that's been kind of batted around, and this is our wonderful friend Heather and I's wonderful friend Sue Peroff, who we both love very dearly. She's a great cosplayer, and we look forward to seeing her every year at the convention. And she says there has been chatter about people not buying tickets but still wandering the halls. And she wonders, are there fire regulations in the convention area regarding numbers? Will they restrict people going in at the point right before the big convention hall? Will there be enough seats? And what about the lineups at the restaurants? Wow, that's another really great point.
Yeah.
So I remember a while back we had jokingly talked about not buying con tickets and just hanging around the Rio every day. So this, I guess it's kind of sort of an option because, theoretically you're supposed to have a ticket even to be able to get past the entryway. But it seems like, there are ways you can just kind of wander around the hallways. You can't get into any of the actual rooms, but you could always kind of hang around and look at the public stuff without an actual ticket. So I don't know, Bill, do you think anybody should try to do that if they can't get tickets but still want to go?
I suppose they could, but I don't know how much value they'd glean out of it. They could see the free things, and who knows how those will be organized this year because there will be more foot traffic in the hallways. I suppose you could, but at that point, if it were me, I don't know that I would.
Yeah, that's probably a really good point. Heather, what are your thoughts on this?
So this has come up in the group from time to time because people seem to think that you can just go and wander. And as we've said, you're supposed to have a wristband, proof of your admission. And when you're walking down the convention hall and you get to the convention area, there are some dudes standing around that will look at your wristband. When it's really busy, and especially if you're already wearing a uniform of sorts, they just kind of let you go through. So you may be able to do it. I would not bank on doing it. We don't know what they're going to do as far as security this year. So there could be a lot more restrictions on how they let you in and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got friends there and your friends are going to come hang out with you at Masquerade or whatnot, then, by all means do that. But just don't bank on being able to get into the convention area if you don't have a ticket.
I agree. Now, I think I've said this before on another episode, but here in New Jersey, the Creation Star Trek convention, which is actually really close to where I live, it's only about a half an hour away from here. Now, they will actually tell you that you can go in and walk through the vendor room without actually buying a ticket.
Wow.
So you need a ticket to get into the panel area. So I remember the first time Craig Cohen and I went to that convention, we walked up to the ticket booth to buy an actual ticket. And they said, well, did you go look at the vendor area and stuff? And it's like, no, we didn't go in yet. They said, well, yeah, just go ahead and take a look and then come back and buy a ticket if you want to go in. I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I know for a fact, because I can remember this, and Heather already said it, there are people at the entrances to every room, including the vendor room in Vegas, and they will not let you in without a wristband unless you're lucky and can slip in. But I wouldn't recommend trying that because you probably will wind up getting thrown out, and that wouldn't be good.
No fun.
So, Sue also brings up a very interesting thing here, and I didn't think about this until just now. I remember very distinctly one day I was pretty hungry at the last convention, and I went to, there's like a little fast food area in the back of the Rio, and I think I waited almost a half an hour for a pretzel at the Wetzel's Pretzel Place. Now, and that was kind of at the height of lunchtime. Now, I can only imagine, Sue brought up the lines at restaurants. I can only imagine how crowded every restaurant in the Rio is going to be with a sellout crowd.
Yeah.
I can testify for you that you will wait at least a half an hour, even when nobody is at that little fast food.
You're probably right.
The wait times are dreadful.
Yeah, I remember seeing a line at Burger King that went all the way out to the escalator.
Yeah.
It was really, really bad. But I remember seeing very, very long lines at Starbucks. I think Heather and I and Claire waited in one of them.
Yeah, I think we did.
It was awful.
So I'm looking at the Rio website, and right now they've got, one upscale dining place, the Voodoo Steakhouse, which is all the way at the top and really lovely if you want a nice view of the Strip.
Yes.
They've got the buffet, and then 1, 2, 3, about 7 other casual sit-down places. I highly recommend Hash House A Go-Go for breakfast and brunch. It's amazing. One is just a wine cellar. Okay, and then like casual food options, you've got the Burger King, Wetzel's Pretzels, Sports Deli. Not a whole lot to choose from as far as meals go. So Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't even want to think about it. If you have options to bring your own food, do that. Stop at the grocery, get some stuff. But I think no matter what, we're going to be facing lines, maybe playing a dinner off, on strip away from the Rio. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, this is why I'm renting a car again this year so that I don't have to deal with this stuff. Because that would drive me ballistic.
How many people can we fit into your car?
I don't know. It's going to be a little one, so maybe 4 or 5 tops.
Shotgun.
Yeah, maybe we can cram people in the trunk. But so, Bill, I know you had some comments about the fast food places, but did you attempt to get into any of the sit-down places last year in the Rio?
I did not, and that's only because I was staying at the Flamingo last year.
Oh, I love that place.
I do too. It's a decent option for a cheap hotel room in the center of the Strip. It is almost geographically dead center. And you can be at the Rio in 5 minutes. It's a fairly cheap cab ride. So if there are people still looking for lodging, it's not a bad option if you don't mind, waiting for a shuttle bus that's going to take a long time, or just, taking a quick $7 cab ride. You might actually save some money compared to staying somewhere else.
Agreed. Excellent advice. So next comment is from, I hope I'm pronouncing the last name right, Robert Reyes. And he says, I guess it would be nice to talk about ways to unwind from the overstimulation from the number of people that will be there. And I think this kind of dovetails right into the whole social anxiety discussion again, and the huge crowds that can generate anxiety for a lot of people. I know you've got claustrophobics who may have a problem being that tight. And, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, I think, to get around and get into the panel rooms and find seats sometimes. So I know, Heather, this is something that's foremost on your mind.
Yeah, Tribble Lounge. More Tribble Lounges. Again, I really hope that they have some places to go hang out, because there are many people that won't be staying at the Rio, so they can't just go up to their room, which is the first thing I do. If there's nowhere for me to chill out in the convention hall, I just go up to the room for a little bit and take a break. But yeah, I mean, they've just got so much space down there. I'm really hoping that they're going to have another nice lounge. Otherwise, I would just recommend getting out your iPad. Well, I guess your iPhone now. We don't really use iPods anymore. But just there are hallways and there are little places you can sneak down and kind of be by yourself if you want to. So I've done that several times. I've just gone and kind of decompressed, listened to some music, chill me out. Eventually you'll feel better and get over there. I do a lot of my unwinding after the con because it's just an overload for many reasons. Just the stimulation, the people being in this. The convention hall isn't smoky, but the rest of the casino people can smoke in. So I usually, wind up sounding a little hoarse at the end. But that's why I take a few days off afterward. This is the most stimulation I will probably get all year. So I do my decompression when I get home. That's
good advice. I would definitely second that, taking a day or two after you get back from the con off just to unwind. Now, Bill, I think for you, this super crowded convention is going to be a huge opportunity. I envision you doing a whole John Cusack style giant boombox in the middle of the hall playing a TrekGeeks episode to the captive audience.
We are trying to get Creation to let us talk to people for the podcast in the hallways. And I don't mean to sneak in a plug, but we're doing our Trek 50 project this year. We're collecting the stories of people's first viewing of Star Trek.
Nice.
And it occurs to us that the largest concentration of fans for this kind of venture is going to be at STLV.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we've been in contact with Creation. Said, look, we don't need anything. We're not going to distribute marketing materials. We're not making any money off this. We just want to have a microphone and a recorder and ask people to tell us their story. And it's taking a while to get approval.
That's what I've heard happens with Creation.
Now, that's interesting because we're not even asking. We're just going to do it. We did it last year and, just walking around with a little handheld mic and hooked up to the iPhone and just recording little brief interviews with people in the hallways or the vendor room.
Well, that may be when it comes to guerrilla style.
Yeah, man.
But we figured we'd ask first.
Of course.
I figured I'd try to be a good citizen. I should have just listened to Dan, and I admit that right now. And I'm sure he's going to hang this over me for the rest of our podcast lives. So, but yeah, I may go John Cusack. I don't know. I may just go with a bullhorn.
Nice.
That's an option too. Going back to Robert's comment about unwinding, for me personally, and I don't know how many other people this works for, I have to get off site. I have to go do something, that doesn't involve the TrekCon. In years past, I know most people don't, but I've golfed. But sometimes I like to go other places where there aren't going to be as many people. I've gone to like the conservatory at the Bellagio because it's, where I've gone and done other things. Maybe headed down to Fremont Street and just sort of, walked around down there. But for me, I need some decompression while I'm there, so I can absolutely respect his question.
Yeah. So actually, Bill, the good thing you said that. We're planning a Fremont Street excursion for the podcast group here. Maybe you guys can tag along.
Excellent.
Yeah, that'd be kind of fun. There's a cool little toy and collectible shop down there we're all interested in hitting up. I hit it up last year and the year before, and there's always really cool stuff in there.
I had no idea. Well, it looks like I'm going on that away team.
Yeah.
Yay.
If you ever watch the show Pawn Stars, by the way.
Yes.
So the guy that they have come in and check out toys that people bring into Pawn runs that toy store downtown. Yeah, he's got some great stuff down there.
Oh, cool. I know him well. Now I'm even more excited. Yay.
Yeah.
I was going to mention too, the Gold Coast next door has a bowling alley.
Oh.
So every now and then people will get a little bowling team together. I think the more that we have, the more we get a discount.
Nice.
But I don't know if it's open 24 hours or not. But that's a fun little way to unwind as well.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of recreation, I think rumor has it that the Kiss Monster Mini Golf is moving to the Rio.
Yeah, we've had a couple people post about it, and it definitely is, and I think it will be open.
Yeah, and that should give us a little extra boost of things that we can do. So
I think that'll be fun.
So finally, we have one more comment here before we move on to our first cons, and this is from Belinda Privet. She says, it would be great to have people, creation people, in the intersections of walkways giving out information or directions. Said last year, unless you had been there all week, it was hard to find photo ops, display rooms, the second theater, and so on. With so many people in the halls, it was hard to know, especially with so many people in wheelchairs and scooters. Not everyone had a helper with them, and there was a lot of single people attending. I found myself and my daughter taking people or assisting them to different areas like the photo ops. Maybe a tall pole with words and general info or directions would really help out. And I kind of agree with that because there were some times where I wasn't sure where exactly things were. Heather, you've been there so many times, you pretty much know the layout, right?
Yeah, at this point I do. And I had mentioned to her that they do have several maps that they've got. I know there's one in front of the main theater, and then I think there was one down by the vendor's room. And then she enlightened to me that apparently there's a map in the program as well. So you do have that to help you. And then I posted a picture in that thread of like the Leonard Nimoy Theater, which was that the Roddenberry Theater this year? Did they name it Nimoy?
There was the Nimoy and the DeForest Kelley last year.
Okay. All right. So then Nimoy was the main one. But it'll have like they do have signs that tell you where to go. But it makes me sad that so many people were confused. And I think that that alone should really inspire creation to do something more. And I think what we need to do is email creation and let them know that. They don't see our group, so they don't know what goes on. But the more people that can communicate how difficult it is to get around, the more power we have to get creation to do something, or for creation to just step up and listen, which they have done in the past few years. So I think it would be great. I think it's a great suggestion, and I think we should all tell creation. I
agree. Bill, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree. I mean, if there's one person, that has that issue, I think it's enough to be a concern because, signage there is not great. I mean, there are lots of banners now in the hallway, which is really nice, but sometimes you don't know what a room is until you're right on top of it. And if there's a group of people there, it can be even harder to see the sign. So I can absolutely appreciate that. I think they do have to make the signage a lot more friendly, to people of all walks of life, simply just to help the confusion, because there will be so many people.
I completely agree, especially at the heights of the crowds. When it's really chaotic in the hallways, it does get a little bit more difficult to know exactly where you're supposed to go for what. And I remember my first photo op that I did at my first con, it took me a while just to find where I was actually supposed to line up for it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
a little bit awkward there. So all of you who have submitted your comments to this recording, thank you so much. We really appreciate everyone chipping in here. It's been a really fun discussion. In closing, about the sellout of the con so early, do either one of you have any final thoughts before we move on to our next segment?
I only wish that there was some kind of booze cart, quite honestly, because I think it's going to require that for me to get this weekend. I believe in better conventioning through potent potables.
Yeah.
No judgments, but I think it would just make the weekend go a whole lot more easily. That's just me, though. I could be wrong.
Well, you can come meet us at the masquerade, because we're going to be there like every night.
I'll be there.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh, I don't really know what else to say. We will update you the more information we get on whether more tickets open up. You'll see that first thing in the unofficial group. And just I think all of you that are in the group for being so awesome and making our community like drama free. And you're all mature, wonderful people. I can't wait to see you in August.
Excellent. Once again, thanks everybody for chiming in on this. It's been a lot of fun. I hope we can get some more listener feedback and comments for our upcoming episodes. So as we said earlier, we are going to do another segment of First Cons. This is actually very quickly becoming my favorite section of these shows. I love hearing all of our guests come on and talk about their first time attending the Star Trek Las Vegas convention.
For everything, there is a first time.
You still, I cannot help but it.
For everything, there is a first time.
First,
Welcome to the second edition of the First Con Club. Hosts Heather and I are here with Bill Smith, who is still here from TrekGeeks. He was with us in our first segment. Bill, how's it going?
Great. I'm just glad you guys haven't gotten rid of me. That's
I was considering hanging up on you, but no, I was kidding.
Everybody does that. It's funny.
So we actually have two more guests that we've added in here for the First Con segment who are going to be sharing their memories from their first conventions with us. First up is a member of our STLV convention family, Mr. Ian Adams. How are you, Ian?
Doing very well, thanks. Great to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you too. Rumor has it that you are joining the Merchant Marines?
Yeah, it's more than a rumor. I just went in for my physical and drug test today, and so I am like one step away from shipping out, really.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, I hope this
But
won't...
I'm still going to miss, I'm still not going to miss Star Trek Las Vegas, though, so let's be clear about that.
I was going to ask.
Important.
I was going to ask that question, so I'm glad to hear that you are not going to miss the convention. Great. So, and we also have another guest with us. He is a returning guest to the show. He's been on a couple times before, and that is the Red Shirt Diaries crew member and Paramount's own Adam Drosin.
Hello, guys. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure to hear your voice. How are things going over at Paramount?
Swimmingly. It is pouring rain in Los Angeles, so everyone's losing their minds, but Paramount's great. Glad to be back on Tricorder transmissions and Shore Leave, which I'm so stoked about. I think it's the coolest show ever. And I'm glad that Mr. Bill Smith's here, too, so it's like I get to be on TrekGeeks at the same time. How cool is that?
The planets have aligned, Adam. It's good to see you again, buddy.
Likewise.
Excellent. So glad to have everybody here. This is going to be pretty awesome. We're all going to be talking about our memories from our first times going to the convention out in Las Vegas. So I'm just going to go around the horn here and ask the first question on the docket here. So Ian, what year was the first convention that you went to out in Vegas?
It was just last year. I'd been wanting to go for a few years, It was actually at Emerald City Comic Con, and I went to a Larry Nemeczek panel, and he mentioned that after his panel, which was like the very last panel on the very last day of the con, he was going to go down the street to a bar and do some Trek trivia and a little fundraising for his Con of Wrath documentary. And there were a few people that also came along with that who, some of them were con goers, and like the first question any of them asked me was, "Have you been to Star Trek Las Vegas yet?" And sadly I had to say no, but so they kept pestering me for a couple years, and so then I finally bit the bullet and went last year, and it was totally worth it. I saw some of them again at the con, which was cool, but made so many new friends, including you guys, and it was just a wonderful experience. I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, awesome. Oh yeah, I think we met up at the Masquerade later in the evening. So that was really cool to me. So let's really quick jump over to Adam. Adam, what was your first convention year?
The first year I went to a convention was in 2013, and technically STLV wasn't the first. I had gone to a convention earlier that year, I want to say like February of 2013, and that was also a creation event. It was something they called the Grand Slam Convention, which apparently they had done for many years beforehand, took a break, and then 2013 was their first year back, and I don't think they've done it since, but it was kind of like a half Trek convention, half everything else kind of going on in sci-fi, fantasy, what have you. So it was kind of cool. It was a lot smaller, obviously, than Vegas, but it was what the French would refer to as an amuse-bouche. It was the appetizer that whet my taste for the whole thing, and I was like, yeah, I have to go to Vegas this year. So I went 2013 and every year since.
Oh, phenomenal. And Mr. Bill Smith, what was the first STLV you attended?
I want to say the first STLV was probably 2007, back when it was over at the Hilton, I think. And my memory's a little foggy on that. I'm not going to lie.
So what made you, Bill, decide to go to your first STLV?
It had been a while since I'd been to a convention. And I sort of felt like, if I was going to pick it back up again, that was probably the place to go. And I have an affinity for Vegas. I'm very familiar with the city itself. And I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to go. And so I did. I went, and I was on my own, and I had as good a time as one can have solo at a convention. But, you figure when the experience was there, and there were warp core breaches, and there were the rides, and it offset a lot. So I had a great time.
Excellent. Adam, what made you decide to go to STLV for the first time?
It was something that was on my radar in 2012, I guess would be the first time I had heard about it. And this was just after I had moved across the country to Los Angeles, so I was not really in a position to go, but I saw the sort of Twitter activity, and I was like, oh, this seems kind of rad. And like I said, the creation con that I went to, the Grand Slam in Burbank earlier in 2013, it was cool, but it was like, I really don't care what the guys from Fringe or Angel have to say about anything, really. So I saw, like, this is the Star Trek convention. This is it. And it was kind of interesting to listen to Claire's recollection of her first STLV last week, because it was almost identical to mine, honestly. She went for the first time, I think, in 2013, and she went by herself. And it's interesting that you had mentioned as well, Bill, the idea of going to one of these cons solo, and that's sort of been my experience for most of the three that I've gone to so far. At the last half of last year's in 2015, I actually got to sort of act as the STLV Sherpa, if you will, to Ashley Robinson and Jason Inman, who are the stars of the Red Shirt Diaries and the brains behind that. And they've had quite a bit of con experience at, the big Comic-Con and all the various ones around the LA area, but this was their first time at STLV, so it was kind of fun to go from 3 years ago, not knowing a single person at this thing, to kind of being like, oh yeah, here's how it goes. Here's the whole layout and everything. So I love it. I think it's great. And Heather, you've mentioned in the past that your STLV family gets bigger every year, and I think that's true for me. And when I met you in 2014, which would have been my second year there, I had just known you through Twitter, I suppose, and I saw you in your cheer fleet uniform with a couple other of the cheer fleet, and I said, oh hey, I think we're Twitter buddies, and it was just like, oh my god, hey, big hug, let's take a selfie, and I was like, yes, this is what Star Trek Las Vegas is about. And I was thinking about this earlier today, how I've got friends who all year they look forward to Bonnaroo or to Coachella or to Burning Man or whatever it is, and it's STLV or it's nothing, baby. You guys know.
Mm-hmm.
We know. You'll know. People out there who have not been, you will know.
Definitely. Now let's roll back over to Ian here, and since last year was your first year at the convention, I'm really curious to know what your favorite memory of your first convention is.
Ooh, that's a really, really tough one because there were so many.
Well, maybe just one of your favorites. Doesn't necessarily have to be a ranking thing, but...
Well, let's see. There was getting to see an episode of Star Trek Continues on the big screen was a lot of fun.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Really difficult, though, to pin one down. Like, overwhelmingly, the feeling was just, like, meeting so many new people and being able to just strike up conversations with anyone. It's kind of not one thing, right? Because it was, maybe like 50 different people. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, there was that. There was some of the panels were fun. I went as Copper last year. This year I'm going to be general admission. But so, like, having a nice seat going up there. Oh, there was a really fun moment at the Masquerade bar on one of the nights. I think I was still waiting for, like, all of you guys to show up. And so Nikki DeBeer was the table over from me. And there was some guy there that was, just talking with her and like getting into this debate with her. Like he was arguing that like Donald Trump is the bee's knees, and sorry to bring politics into it, but Nikki just wasn't having any of that. And eventually the guy went away, and she was just like, she was so fired up about it. She was like, she came over to my table and she was like, can you believe this guy? Like, what's up with that? And so then like we're having this, little conversation, like, kind of an intense, like, philosophically political conversation. And then Gene Roddenberry's son, Eugene Roddenberry, comes up and says, hey, Nikki, I've been looking for you. And then they walk off together. And I was like, so that just happened.
Now, I have a very distinct memory of you, Ian, at the Masquerade. It was one of the very, very late nights. And I think we're probably 4 or 5 beers in at that point, I would think. It was pretty late, but you had gotten involved in one of our more, how can I say, adult sounding games that we play. It's nothing
Yes.
physical, but I don't want to get too deep into what the actual game is, but it's kind of, it revolves around marrying certain characters and killing certain characters and things like that. But I remember you being roped into this game, and there were so many of us playing. I think, Heather, were you playing at that time too?
I might have been. I don't play that game as much.
I know Claire was playing.
Yeah. I think I have a picture of all of you playing.
Oh, you got to send that. We can put it on the episode page. Do you remember?
Okay.
You remember that, Ian?
Oh, I totally remember that.
Yeah,
it was you and me and Claire and Jim, and Andy was kind of in and out of it.
Yes. Yeah, I think Mike Rittenhouse may have been in
Heather,
there too.
I think you were there, but I don't remember you like chiming in.
Sometimes I get quiet.
Oh, good times. So, Bill, I know you said your memories are a bit hazy, but I know you do have some stories that you wanted to share about your convention experiences. You want to throw one of those out there for us?
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to. I can tell you about the very first convention I ever went to. And that was in the small city of Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm from New Hampshire. I'm a native. And it was the first convention they ever had there. And this is probably going back to 1987.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm old. Thanks. And George Takei was the guest there. And I think there were maybe 300 people in attendance. So it was a tiny convention at a tiny hotel. And I had no money. I mean, my parents spent the early part of the 80s out of work. And we spent the rest of the decade really kind of struggling. And I didn't have my driver's license yet. And so my mom took me to Manchester because she had some errands to run. And I said, well, can you drop me off at the hotel downtown? Because there's a Star Trek convention. And I want to see if I can get in the dealer's room to maybe buy something. She goes, okay, I'll meet you back here in an hour. And I said, okay, great. So I get to the convention and they're like, they don't want to let me in the dealer's room. I'm like, it's 3:00 on Sunday. Can you just let me in the dealer's room? I'll go in, I'll come out. You'll never know I was here. So they finally consented and let me in. And I didn't really find anything. And I'm waiting in the lobby for my mom and there's nobody else around. And I'm thinking, well, this is a Star Trek convention. Where are the people? And the next thing I know is I'm looking out the window. I feel a tap on my shoulder. And I turn around and it's George Takei.
Oh, wow.
And he says, are you going inside? Meaning the convention hall? I said, well, no, I don't have a ticket. I couldn't afford one. And he puts his hand on my shoulder and says, it's okay. I think if you come with me, nobody's going to say anything. So we walk through the main door of the convention hall and he makes his grand entrance into the room and everybody's standing and applauding. And here I am walking into a Star Trek convention, or being snuck in, I should say, by Mr. Sulu.
That's amazing. How long did your mom have to wait for you to come out?
At least an hour, and she was not happy, let me tell you.
Oh, and she couldn't get in there to come find you either because she didn't have a ticket.
So she understood afterwards, but it was the experience of a lifetime, and it's the kind of thing you never forget. I mean, how many people has George snuck into conventions? I'm willing to bet it's not. Probably
not that many, but it's great to hear you have a celebrity story, because we've had a couple of them pop up so far. I remember Gerardo on our last episode told us his great celebrity story about Chase Masterson. So it's pretty amazing to hear these things. So Adam, do you have any similar stories from your first convention?
The thing I think is interesting about my first convention, thinking about it now, is one of my favorite things about my STLV experiences is indulging in these little rituals I've developed, and a lot of them started on that first time. A big part of it is the drive out there. Living in Los Angeles, it's like a 4 or 5 hour drive to Vegas, so I'm pretty fortunate in the fact that I don't have to spend money on airfare, and I get to have my car at the con the whole time. And the drive out there is great because the first part of it, I'll listen to some podcasts and I'll call people, I'm heading to Vegas, and the way it works is, have you guys ever seen that SNL sketch, The Californians?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, being an East Coaster, before I came out here, I thought that was just like New Yorkers riffing on Californians. But having lived here for 4 years now, it is so true. People talk like that all the time. So the way I get to STLV is I take the 101 South to the 10 East to the 15 North. Okay, and the 15 North is like the big stretch. It's like 200-mile drive. So the second I hit that 15 North through the desert, I crank up Jerry Goldsmith's score for First Contact.
Nice.
And I'm just like, yes, it's happening. And it's just like the perfect moment. I get so excited just for that little moment. And the cool thing is, every year I add new little parts to my ritual. So the new thing for that is, after I listen to First Contact, I just recently came into possession of the 15-disc La La Land record set of all the original series music. So
it's a great
set. I'm going to be listening to a lot of TOS music on the drive up, and hit up all my favorite food spots, which I think I'll get into a little bit later, I guess. And a couple of the things that really stand out the first time is one of the first people I met there and really hung out with a bit was Jordan Hoffman, who does the One Trek Mind panels in the secondary theater. Great guy. We're both alumni of NYU Film School. Go NYU. And we just kind of hit it off. We both had some mutual friends, and we just kind of palled around that first night. We got Romulan blue slushies around the corner from the Masquerade Bar. I don't know if you guys know about that, but there's a little alcoholic slushy booth, and they have different Trek-themed ones. So I got pretty wrecked on some really just disgustingly sweet rum punch. And then we went to the karaoke, and Jordan did Living for the City by Stevie Wonder, which absolutely just destroyed. Everyone was dancing. And then after him was Eric Allen Hall, who I believe has been on this show before.
He has, yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Heather, you did an awesome cosplay with him as the Paradise Syndrome, right?
Yeah, Miramani's tribe.
Phenomenal. Such a good cosplay. And he went up after Jordan as Data with a woman who was dressed as an Andorian, and they did the B-52's Love Shack, and it was unbelievable. So I think I still have the video on my phone. I'll have to post it to you guys. That really stuck out of my mind. Watching Denise Crosby officiate a wedding on the Enterprise D replica bridge that Houston Huddleston brought, that was amazing. So many good things, and I just love adding to those little rituals I've developed in the last 3 years, and can't wait to just blow it into the stratosphere now for the 50th.
So cool that you brought up Jordan Hoffman, by the way. Just a quick side note. We often talk about, when we met certain people at the conventions and remembering those particular moments. And I remember very distinctly that I'd mentioned this conversation that I had with Claire and Jim Morehouse the first night that we met at the Masquerade, but Jordan Hoffman was the fourth person involved in that conversation, and that's why Claire wound up jumping in to the conversation we were having. So Jordan is a part of my my memories from last year and actually meeting Claire and Jim Morehouse. So pretty cool that he's kind of part of both of our stories.
I think he's phenomenal, and I told him when I first met him, because I'd never seen his panels. I just known him through his One Trek Mind. I guess it would be his articles on StarTrek.com, which if you guys haven't read these, they're so good, and they're so funny and personable and unique, and it's just, I told him I think it was such a great way for me to embrace what the fandom is, because I mentioned the last time I was on this show, I'm relatively new to the Star Trek community. I only started watching the show really in late 2011, and I read these articles, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, it's not this monolithic, Trekkie core base that I thought it was. Everyone kind of has their own take on it, and he's just so funny. And if anyone hasn't been to his One Trek Mind panels at STLV, probably one of my favorite parts of the whole convention. So much fun, because he'll do a thing where he'll throw out a topic, 10 best Star Trek ships, 10 best Star Trek fights, and everyone gets to go up to the mic, have a little debate, and it's a crowd done thing. And he's like just this classic New York style MC, and he's throwing out quips. Everybody's loving it. And now that I think about it, the first one I remember my first year, this was summer 2013, so this was right after Star Trek Into Darkness came out, and that was the thing that year. Everyone was buzzing about that and hating on that and this and that, and it became the thing that they ranked the Star Trek movies from best to worst. And of course, that was the year that Star Trek Into Darkness took the 13th spot because Galaxy Quest was included, and then it became all over the internet. Star Trek fans hate Into Darkness, ranked as the worst thing ever. And I was there in the room, and it really it was a fun debate, but it wasn't this huge controversial thing. It was just like, it just came out, and no one was vibing it, and that was that. But I just love those Star Trek One Trek Mind panels, because it really feels like Twitter live or a web forum live, and you just have the best, funniest toast you can get. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Jordan Hoffman for sure.
Awesome. So, Bill, I know we had talked prior to recording, and you had several stories that you wanted to share. So let's throw back to you for another one of your...
Wow, the pressure's on. I have another convention I think of as my first, and It's probably one of the more recent ones. And even though I've been to STLV before that, I think of some of these as, kind of seminal in my experience as a Star Trek fan. And it was back in 2011, my wife took me to Trek Boss, so the creation convention in Boston, specifically so I could get my photo taken with William Shatner. Because that was kind of a bucket list thing for me. I've always wanted a photo with Shatner, and this was right around the time where he was kind of having his turnabout, his change of mindset with regard to conventions and fans. And so I got the photo taken, and the next day, my wife said, "So, what did you think about the convention?" I said, "Well, honestly, it was kind of lame. I mean, the venue was terrible. The sound system was almost inaudible. Everything was cramped. There was practically no dealer's room." She goes, "Well, you should take that photo of you and Shatner to Vegas and get it signed." And I said, "Well, honey, Vegas is in 3 weeks." And then she said the words that launched my annual trip now, which are, "I guess you'd better get cracking, shouldn't you?"
Wow.
And that started, what has now become a gathering of my brothers in arms. I called a couple of my friends in Denver and said, "Hey, what are the odds you guys can meet me in Vegas in 3 weeks?" And they said, "Yeah, we're there." So we went, and I got my picture with William Shatner signed, and he could not have been more gracious. I know what his reputation is, but he was kind, and he made eye contact. Everybody before me and after me was having merchandise and memorabilia signed, and here I brought a photo of me and him. And normally the handler takes the photo and they set it down in front of him, and then the person on the other side takes the photo from him and hands it back to you. So the first part of that happened. They took the photo for me, they put it in front of him. He stopped what he was doing, he put his hands up in the air, and he looked at me and said, "Thank you so much for this." And so he took his pen and he probably signed his name a little bigger than he did the rest of that day. And instead of letting the person to his left take it from him and present it to me, he handed it to me himself and said, "Thank you so much." And I have to tell you, it's the most humble I have ever seen William Shatner at a convention, and it totally changed my mindset. And that trip launched my annual golf trek trip that I make with my buddies, and it has grown every year. And now there are 10 of us who go, and we spend the weekend doing golf-related things, and we go to the Star Trek convention. This year, it's more Trek than golf, which is great, but it really has created a new phase of my fandom at a new point in my life as I get older.
Yeah. Oh, real quick, Bill, can I just say the first TrekGeeks podcast I listened to was actually your guys' STLV podcast, and I first saw it because Heather had retweeted it, and I listened to it, and I was just listening to you talk about your golf sesh and just how you like to hang out with your bros, and you Gordon Ramsay's and the Wheel of Meat, and just the level of detail. I love the Wheel of Meat, by the way. It's so good. But the level of detail and warmth and specificity with which you spoke about it, I was like, yeah, I get it, because I'm coming from the same place, and I think I've listened to every TrekGeeks the day it came out since. So I'm just to throw you some love there. I totally appreciate and love hearing your stories about it. I can't get enough.
Well, thank you so much. And it's funny because I made this comment on an episode, and Heather retweeted it today. And everybody who loves something about Star Trek is a real fan, and these experiences are what define our fandom, and it's unique to everybody. And they are some of the best moments of my adult life. And as I get older, because I'll be 50 in a few years, I am probably more prescient, with regard to that than anything else. And they are things that, are going to warm my heart from now till the end of time.
Excellent. Wow. That's a great place to end the podcast.
Top that, Adam.
Wow. So no, we're not actually ending the podcast now, though. We're not actually going to end the podcast now. Playing off of this photo op experience, Ian, since your first convention was last year, did you do any photo ops?
I totally did. Let's see. I only did a few of them, though. I did one, with the Enterprise bridge that they had there, the TOS bridge. Just me sitting in the captain's chair. That's it. Pretty simple, but awesome. And then I know I did Gowron and Martok, like, you know, in their Klingon costumes.
Nice.
That was a lot of fun, and they're hilarious. It was like right after it was right after the panel that they did, where they were in their makeup and everything, and the line was huge, but it was totally worth it just standing in line for it. You know, you get like maybe 10 seconds max, but you know, they were just totally into it. They were just like, you know, come on, give us your biggest Klingon roar, and you know, just like getting into it. It was a lot of fun. I want to say I did one more, but I can't really think of what it would be at the moment.
Did you do any photos with friends that you met there?
Yeah, I did a few. Like there was the you know, the Borg alcoves they had in the hallway. I ran into my friends Michael and Karen Malome, who are also here in Seattle. You know, that I actually ran into them pretty much as soon as I got to the con, which was kind of awesome, because they were the ones who had first pestered me about, you know, like, hey, have you been to STLV yet? And so then, you know, I was just walking around with them. That was how I met Marina, because like they ran into her, and then they're like, hey, Marina, and this is Ian, and so like we meandered over towards those Borg alcoves and got some photos of, you know, we all took photos of each other like standing in the alcoves, and that was a lot of fun. Those things were really well put together.
They were, yeah.
I don't think I did any of the other stuff though. Like they had the Guardian of Forever there with the pile of tribbles in front of it, and like all those other public ones. I don't think I really did, but those are the ones that immediately come to mind. And then I also got like a few just, you know, celebrity portraits from the dealer's table signed, which I guess is not really like a photo op at all, but they're in the same stack. So
but it could be celebrity interactions. I mean, when you got the photos, you did have to actually converse with them a little bit?
Oh yeah. Totally. What one was great was Anthony Montgomery.
Right.
So Anthony Montgomery, I have waited 11 years to meet him, and the reason that number is very specific is because that's how old my cat is. And so Anthony Montgomery's first lead role in a movie was in, do you remember in the 80s they had the Leprechaun movies with Warwick Davis?
Oh yes.
Right, so they kept making those, and in 2000 they came out with Leprechaun 5, Leprechaun in the Hood.
Oh, yeah. God, I remember that.
And Anthony Montgomery was the lead in that, and his character's name was Postmaster P, and he was this rapper who was trying to make it without, you know, compromising his principles, and you know, you could totally see like, you know, why he took the role and everything, but it was also obvious that it was like the kind of thing that he really just wanted to jump off of that springboard and then not look back, you know, but my cat, who is now almost 12 years old, is named Postmaster P after that character. And so I got to talk to Anthony Montgomery and say, hey, by the way, my cat is named Postmaster P, and he just lost it. It was like 11 years waiting to tell him that and see the look on his face, and it completely paid off.
I really love that everyone has their own specific memories with different actors or different friends. I think it really goes to show that no matter who you are, you go to this convention and have these types of experiences. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
It is. And I think this is one of those things we've said before, but this is the stuff that can happen at a Star Trek convention. And, you know, you can't bank on it happening, but it seems to be so common amongst all of us that I think the odds of you having some interaction with somebody involved with the Star Trek series is pretty good.
Yeah, they do seem to come around a lot. I mean, not just the dealer's room, but also like the masquerade. I mean, there was Nick de Beer that one night, but then I remember another night you had Vaughn Armstrong was in there.
Mm-hmm.
I sat next to Don Most at the Masquerade Bar, which
Nice.
he was just a guest star on a couple episodes, but in my head, I was like, man, I'm sitting next to Ralph Malph from Happy Days right now.
Nice. Yeah, I remember Tracy Coco hung out in the Masquerade a bit. So it really seems like the Masquerade is the place to hang out, which was a tip that I had gotten from your group, Heather, the unofficial Las Vegas Star Trek group.
Yeah. We can only imagine what the Masquerade is going to look like this year.
Oh my God. I'm going to be surprised if we get even standing room in there. I have a feeling that a lot of it is going to be standing on that little platform below where all the slot machines are.
Yeah, most likely. There's been talk of some of the other bars around and other places to hang out, but I feel like everybody just gravitates to the Masquerade, so we'll probably just still be overflowing there.
Yeah, more than likely. Hey, Adam, any photo op memories from your first STLV?
Yes and no. I've never done an official photo op that, you stand in line, creation does, you get the glossy, whatever. Never actually done that. But another one of my STLV rituals that I had mentioned before is my Polaroid camera, which is like the best. My mom bought this Polaroid 600 camera in, I want to say, like 1988. And it still works like a charm. There's only one place that still sells the film. It's this company called The Impossible Project, and it's an independent thing, and it's obscenely expensive, but it's really fun because it's one of those things where everyone has a camera in their cell phone now, so when you pull out the Polaroid, everyone's like, oh, man, that's cool, and it's a great thing. So I kind of I did that the first year, and I kind of geek out more about the writers and directors and that kind of thing, more so than the actors. So my first year, I got a Polaroid with Brandon Braga, who is really cool, and his assistant. The funny thing I remember about that, his assistant freaked out about the Polaroid. She's like, "Oh my God, that's so cool, this and that." So it was really funny. The second year, I think it was in Jersey at the time, so I didn't bring it with me. But last year, I brought it back, and I took a ton of film. And the one celebrity, I guess, that I was so geeked out about the whole time was Mr. Brian Fuller, who we just now recently heard is going to be the new showrunner of Star Trek in next year. So at the time, he was just there because, he had started on Star Trek, but at the time he was doing Hannibal, which is the show. It's so good. So I got my Polaroid with Fuller, and I got him to sign that, and then I happened to be walking around, and I saw him in the Borg alcove taking pictures. So I just went up. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I snap a Polaroid? Are you in the Borg alcove? And he's like, yeah, totally. So he threw up the Vulcan salute, and I got a Polaroid of that. And I think that was right before I met you, Bill and Dan, with Jason and Ashley at the con. That was, I think, literally a second before that happened.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. I think I met you guys in the hallway right around the same time, I want to say.
Possibly, because I know I met you. I didn't know you through Twitter beforehand. I met you through Ashley and Jason, who had done a podcast with you before.
Yeah, we'd done a lot of promo work for the first series of Red Shirt Diaries, and I remember the crowd was kind of parting as I was walking through the hall, and I saw Ashley and Jason emerge, and you were right behind them, and it was one of those oh my God kind of moments. Seeing people that I had only talked to on a podcast before, so
that was great. Then we actually got to hang out Thanksgiving weekend just this past year in Jersey, and had a little Masquerade bar sesh ourselves, which was pretty fun.
Yes, in Princeton, New Jersey. Yeah, we got together for a round or two of beers here. So nice to meet up with an STLV friend, kind of in between conventions.
Totally cool. And the thing that I literally just thought of is we both kind of realized we were both huge fans of Pink Floyd during that conversation, which is another thing that I love about STLV. And going back to the Polaroid, that's kind of how I struck up a convo with everybody's good buddy Andy Fark from 5 Year Mission. I was talking to him about the Polaroid, and somehow we got into the topic of Harmony Korine, who's just this crazy director, did Gummo and Kids and most recently Spring Breakers. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, I would have never imagined in a million years I'd be talking about this kind of stuff at STLV, but that's kind of it. I was really enjoyed Claire's presentation as well, which I think that we said later on would be the flashpoint for your Atavacron show. Like, just it's so cool seeing not only everyone obviously is there because they love Star Trek so much, and then you find out the other kind of stuff they love. It just makes it that much better, I think.
I totally agree. With Andy in particular, we were all hanging out at the Masquerade one night, and I noticed that he was wearing a Wesley Willis shirt. And it's so rare to meet anyone who even knows who Wesley Willis was. He's now unfortunately deceased. He was this
the outsider artist, right?
He was this formerly homeless. Like he was he suffered from schizophrenia, and he got to start basically with a Casio keyboard and just writing kind of the same song over and over with just bizarre lyrics. Like there's one song, for example, called "I Whooped Batman's Ass," and he would always sign off each song with "Rock over London, rock on Chicago," and then some sort of marketing slogan like "Wheaties, breakfast of champions." And so I saw Andy wearing that shirt, and I said, "Rock over London, rock on Chicago," and like immediately he was like, "Okay," because he was talking with Heather and I forget who else, but on the other side of the circle, and he was like, "Excuse me, I need to go talk with this gentleman right now."
Andy is awesome like that, by the way. So if anybody who's listening to this wants to come and hang out with us at Masquerade, I'm sure Andy will be close by, and you can meet this mythical figure. He might be listening to this too, mythical figure Andy Fark. So, Ian, since we're talking to you about your first convention, I know you said you went to a few panels. Are there any panels that stick out to you specifically that you can say were favorites?
Well, the one that probably sticks out the most in my mind was the Leonard Nimoy tribute.
Yeah.
It's hard to not get emotional even just thinking about him and just like seeing. It was really a well put together presentation they did, and then getting to see Adam Nimoy speak afterwards was a real treat. And it was the sort of thing because while this was going on, my own dad was, on his deathbed basically, and so it was there was a kind of synchronicity there of emotion that really resonated with me. So I'd probably have to say that those two were probably the biggest one for me.
I don't know if it's bittersweet to have an emotional connection like that with the panel. Is Spock one of your favorite characters?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I thought we were talked about that at the con.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, whenever I'm in school, I'm not currently at the moment, but it's one of the reasons I'm going into the Merchant Marines to get money for school. Like I'm studying for a chemical engineering degree, which is basically like you can directly trace that back to watching Spock as a 6-year-old kid, on my TV. The idea of like, he was a science officer, right? Like that's such a weird thing to see, like on any TV show. And plus just the character himself was so great. And then of course, who has anything bad to say about like the man? He was just an incredible person, and boy, what a loss that was.
Yeah, it's huge. I always love talking to other people who were inspired by the Spock character as children, and I think that's something that we talked about at the convention briefly, and I'm glad that you brought that up again. I talked about my my drawing inspiration from Spock to get into computers when I was a little kid. So
oh yeah,
so awesome to hear other people who kind of are on a similar path because of that character, or in part because of that character. So as we're getting close to the end of our discussion here, I want to give you guys each an opportunity to offer any advice that you may have for people who may be considering going to the con for their first time. So Ian, being that your first time was last year, is there anything you learned from being at the Vegas convention that you think other people might benefit from knowing?
Well, before you go to the Vegas con, the first thing you should do is sign up for the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas group on Facebook, because that was an absolute fountain of useful information that prepared me for a lot of the stuff. And it also like connected me with a lot of like, because it's such a huge group, and a lot of the people there are, they're obviously there at the convention as well. That's why the page exists, right? And so, if you want to know what's going on, where to go hang out, all that sort of stuff, that page is really going to give you a great idea. And the piece of advice that I would say is just walk up to people and talk to them. I mean, don't be like weird about it, but like, like you really can, because like everybody there has one thing in common, and that's Star Trek. And so it doesn't matter, like you just talk to people, and it turns out most of the people there are really cool and really fun to talk to, and you have like a really good chance of making a whole lot of new friends, potentially, that will last you the rest of your life. So just that would be my advice, is just talk to people.
Very good advice.
Absolutely excellent. And I always love getting the plugs in for the unofficial Facebook group here. So
yes, thank you.
For that. So Adam, any advice for would-be newcomers to the Vegas Con?
I have never stayed at the Rio in the 3 years I've gone to the convention. So I'll say this, since I know the Rio's completely sold out at this point, and a lot of the nearby ones are too, you're going to have a great time if you don't stay at the Rio. I'll tell you a couple of the places I have stayed. The first year I stayed at Harrah's on the Strip, which is nice. It's like a good low-budget Strip option. It's great if you've never been to Vegas before, and you can actually take a shuttle from Harrah's to Rio. Very cool. I've stayed at both the Howard Johnsons and the Super 8 across from the Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, which is at the complete opposite side of the city from where Rio is. But if you have a car, it's 15 minutes or less, and so it's nothing. Like literally all I do at the hotel is use the bathroom, sleep, shower, whatever, so I'm never there. And then the last year I went, I actually did an Airbnb, which I thought would be kind of sketchy, because you never know, but it was this super nice family, and I walk in, they're watching Doctor Who, and they're like, oh, we love Doctor Who, we don't really know Star Trek, this and that. I'm like, okay, this is nice, this is perfectly fine. You're paying half the price of what you would at any hotel, even the cheap ones like the Howard Johnsons or whatever. So if you're, comfortable with that, look into Airbnb. I think that's a good suggestion. If you do drive to the convention, this is something I think is specific to my experience that I've really kind of enjoyed discovering. You can park basically right where the corner is between the main ballroom and the hallway with the secondary theater and vendors and all that stuff. You can just walk right in. Mm-hmm. I like to park, however, in this little weird side parking lot that you walk into basically right where that Indian buffet is. So like halfway between the con area and the masquerade bar, because that way you have like a good better part of 10 minutes walk into the con. You get to watch everybody walking in, walking out, seeing all their costumes. I just like that little aspect of it. So just weird little things like that. Find your own path to, STLV. If it's, not staying at the hotel you want to, or not being able to see every little thing, just kind of enjoy the pieces that come to you. And real quick, go eat at Pop's Cheesesteaks, which is awesome. Go eat at Jam's for breakfast, which is so good. Way cheaper than the Hash House in the Rio. And this is coming from somebody who worked on Man vs. Food on Travel Channel. So I know all the good Vegas spots, guys. But just have a great time. That's the end-all, be-all advice that I can say to you if you're going to STLV. Have a great time, guys.
Yeah, fantastic advice. Listen, I'm going to chime in real quick here because we were talking about parking. I just something that I learned, and this is advice that I would give anybody. If you are, in fact, renting a car or driving in, when you pull into the Rio from the front entrance and you kind of veer off to the right and go past the parking deck, don't park in the parking deck. So wrap around the back of the building and you will see a lot back there that Adam was mentioning that will bring you up the staircase there, will bring you right into the hall where the convention is. So you don't have to walk all the way from the parking deck. A lot of people think they have to park there, but you don't. There's a whole big lot back there that actually will get filled up during midday.
Oh yeah,
And it's really freaking
free.
hot.
It's free.
It is
Yeah,
free.
it's hot. It's hot. It's free. You can park anywhere in Vegas for free. And listen, guys, if you want to hang out at the Masquerade Bar, get a little buzz on, it's Vegas. It's your vacation. Do it. Leave your car there and take a cab. They're not going to give you a ticket. Just come back. It'll be there for you in the con in the morning. Don't sweat it. Like, just because you're not staying at the Rio doesn't mean you can't hang out and party super late. Just be responsible.
Agreed. So thank you, everybody. Ian and Adam, thank you for being on this episode of Shore Leave. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. Hopefully both of you can come back on the show prior to the convention.
Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah, you got it.
All right.
Well, actually, that might be a little bit difficult. I might be out at sea, like, just right up to the vacation. But get a hold of me on Twitter. I will try.
Well, perhaps you could record a little voice memo on your phone and email it to us, and we can include it in an episode before the convention.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So, Heather, any closing comments from you as we're signing off?
Yeah, I was talking to myself there for a minute. No, I don't have anything else to say. I really hope that everyone looking for tickets is able to get tickets. Join the group because we have the thread, and hopefully you'll find some. I'm so excited, and that's the more that we talk, the more excited I get. So I'm just high on thinking about STLV right now.
As are we all. I think we're all getting really excited. We're only a few months out, but there'll be plenty more Shore Leave episodes between now and the convention, and you'll be able to tune in with us at least once a month. Every month leading up to the convention, although there's some talk of maybe doing some more frequent episodes here as the convention gets closer and closer and more guests are announced and some of the activities that are going to be happening are announced and some of the unofficial activities that are going to be developed in the Facebook group get announced. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for more Shore Leave episodes, and thank you as always for tuning in. You can find our show at thetricordertransmissions.com, facebook.com/the Tricorder Transmissions, on Twitter at TTT_pod. And of course, you can also find the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas Facebook page, which is the group we keep talking about that our wonderful co-host Heather Barker is an administrator of. Yeah. So join up on that group and talk to us, and we'll be more than happy to talk back and have some conversations with you. So unfortunately, this episode and your Shore Leave are now over.